Like, this is not a high five situation or a fist bump situation. We could die. Welcome to the Barry Podcast, an unofficial podcast covering the HBO hit series Barry. I'm one of your hosts, Jamie G, Esquire the Fifth, master of the Hard Five. And I don't even have to do it with myself. I'm here with my co-host, Magnum Mills. We're going to talk about the fifth episode of Barry, Chapter 5, Do Your Job.
I don't know about doing it with myself. I'm more of a get her done kind of guy. Shout out Larry the Cable Guy. I am Magnum Mills, but whether I'm Larry the Cable Guy, Magnum Mills, you're getting her done. The Hard Five, we get the job done. That's all that matters. Thanks for checking out the Barry Podcast. Find us wherever you get your pods, Apple, Spotify, all the good ones. We are there. We're on the social media as well at Barry Podcast. And if you're just listening, you can find our YouTube channel at joeblowfootballshow.com or search for Barry Podcast. Whether you're listening or watching, if you could, please take 10 seconds to like, comment, rate, follow, subscribe. You know the drill. Just do one of those things. It takes you less time than it takes for me to say all of this, and it really helps us out a lot because it helps other people find the show. We greatly appreciate it. Please do your job. You only have one job. You only have one job.
Nicely done, sir. When we cover new episodes of Barry, we spoil everything from the previous episodes. Full-on spoiler shit. So any episode of Barry could come up in our discussion. However, we do things a little bit differently here with these rewatch episodes. We will not, I repeat, we will not be spoiling any future events or episodes of Barry during our recap discussion of this episode titled Do Your Job. At the end of our episode discussion, then and only then, we'll have a spoiler section where we can discuss whatever the fuck we want. Don't worry, though. We'll give you a heads up before we get to that point, and you'll have plenty of time to bail out if you choose to do so. Mills, give us the episode deets.
Yeah, I don't suppose I can bail out now. This was Chapter 5, Do Your Job. Originally aired Sunday, April 22nd, 2018, with an estimated 643,000 viewers tuning in live in the United States. This was directed by Hiro Murai. This is the first episode of Barry that he has directed. Written by Ben Smith. This is his first written by credit on Barry. The not-so-short plot synopsis is, Barry looks to hit the reset button with Sally, but a scene from Macbeth triggers a reaction that pushes them farther apart. Moss moves to interrogate members of Gene's acting class after a shooting video surfaces. Barry finds himself in a quandary after teaming up with Taylor, a reckless new acquaintance, in a dangerous mission to wipe out a group of Bolivians.
And before that was not so short, you're right. Before we get into our recap discussion of this episode, we're going to each give you our overall thoughts, remembering no spoilers here. Dude, this was a great episode. Like, legit, this was a banger, hilarious. Really enjoyed some of the new character. We get Taylor. Taylor had lines, dude, albeit it was voicemail, but it was still hilarious voicemail lines. Really enjoyed that. You get what kind of you want with the acting class. There was kind of an interesting moment there with that. We'll talk about that as we get to that point of this episode. And man, we get the Chechkins. We get our first introduction to the Bolivians. And we get Fuchs again operating at full speed, dude. I mean, Fuchs is just on fire here. So there could be just a show on, there could be a spinoff just called Fuchs instead of Barry. That's how awesome he is. So I'm a big fan of this one, dude. Like, I thought this episode was great.
I mean, that would have been a great promotional thing, right? To just have Stephen Root as Fuchs just playing golf and like do it on Twitch, and just have him like in a hotel room playing his golf video game with people watching on Twitch as Fuchs. I think that would have been, yeah, I would watch that. So that's how good Barry is. And yeah, I think this is a very good episode. I think we all got things that we wanted. We finally got a big action scene, although we didn't really get to see Barry show his stuff that much. You do get the idea that Barry's at his most competent and confident with a gun in his hand. We see, Gene gets to kind of get together with Janice. Sally gets comeuppance. So I think there's a lot of good stuff going on here. If there's any, minor quibble I had, it's again, we basically just get the one scene with Hank and Goran. I do love me the Chechens, so I feel bad that they're not integrated that much here, but I think Taylor is a fine substitute All of his voicemails are just gold. I love his whole overall attitude. And he kind of reminds me of like I don't want it like a whatever TV version of like Dave Bautista, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Just kind of his deadpan or whatever. Like it feels that if they were doing Barry now and it had a higher profile, like Dave Bautista would actually be playing this role. But I think the actor who plays Taylor actually does a really great job with it. So I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the most positive way, that he's reminding me of a an actor who's kind of like on top of his game right now. So
Mills, it's time to do your job, buddy.
well, I mean, I've actually never had a job on the boardwalk, but that's where we open the episode. And Barry is hanging out with Chris and his family. Barry checks his voicemail and he's got two messages. They're both from Taylor, who really wants to help Barry kill these Bolivians. Barry tries to get more information from Chris about Taylor, but Chris really doesn't know much. And, Barry can't help himself, and he's got to go ahead and win the little target contest with the BB gun.
This whole thing was hilarious. I mean, right off the bat, you got him. These voicemails are just.
Barry, it's Taylor. Chris's friend from the party. I was just calling to check and see when we're gonna kill those Bolivians. Okay, fuck yeah. Later. Barry, Taylor, you didn't kill those Bolivians yet, did you? I really want to kill them with you. So, give me a buzz. Bye.
These voicemails were pure gold. As you said, they were absolutely fantastic. And right off the bat, you're like, yeah, this. All right. So when we got Taylor for that little brief segment when he was with Vaughn, at the house party, yeah, this is exactly who he is, and it's spot on. And shout out to Barry trying desperately to pick Chris's brain, but he's like a solid dude, right? Yeah, I mean. And then he tells him the story about breaking the dude's jaw who spilled the drink on him. So it's like, yeah, that's Barry's dealing with some nerves here, man. And I will say, Chris has a wonderful family.
And he gets the best non-voicemail line here when he's like, when Barry's asking about Taylor, and he says,
"We met in this program that helps vets reacclimate. He was the first guy they ever kicked out."
Great. So I think they're definitely doing a really good job of kind of setting up who Taylor is. And we were talking about it a minute ago, but give me the Taylor prequel. Like, I just want to see just him going out every night, and just this seems to be a dude who just does not give a fuck, right? Like, there's got to be, maybe this isn't this is more of a Max thing. It's not quite pure HBO. It's a little grimier or whatever. But I think I'm there for the Taylor prequel or what have you.
Yeah, his downfall.
I want to see this dude at the grocery store.
Dude, he must just be partying every night, just looking for anything that even triggers the remote close of serving. You know what I mean? Some guys have a hard time adjusting, man.
Give me a two-parter about Taylor trying to buy a mattress or something.
Hilarious.
Fuck you mean $2,300.
Ends up just beating somebody's ass and then banging the dude's wife on the mattress in the back of the store or something like that. Would just be so.
Yeah, he just robbed the store. That's probably basically what it would be. Him trying to do it the right way, and then he's just like, "Oh fuck it," every episode, and then he just robs shit.
Yeah, he sets up, he wakes up hungover. He's like, "I'm gonna do it right today," but then he ends up just going back to.
Like Peaky in the brain, and he tries to go straight, but at the end of the day, he's just trying to take over the world. And that's Taylor. That's who he is, and we'll get to him more. But after we just talked about that opening scene there, we get the title card. And Chris has Barry take a picture of him and his family there on the boardwalk. And this sends Barry into a daydream about him raising a family with Sally. When Barry snaps back to reality, we're outside of the acting class where the casting assignments for the annual Shakespeare showcase have been posted. Sally walks by trying to ignore Barry. He tries to talk to her, and she doesn't want anything to do with him. Unfortunately for her, they're scene partners. And to top it all off, she's not even playing Lady Macbeth like she did last year. Natalie is playing her this year. Jean opens the door and tells the class that somebody's here to talk to them about Ryan's murder.
All right, so a lot to unpack with this one, but let me just break down a couple of things here. One, Nick proves again to be the absolute worst. Two, dude, I thought it was brilliant from the writing of this show to give the lead to Natalie, because what it does is you kind of get Sally, who's nonchalant, well, I don't know that I want to play Macbeth again. And then she finds out that she's not, and it gives a chance for her character to really kind of showcase who she really is with this kind of narcissistic ego that she has, right? And this is as she's kind of telling Barry about his toxic masculinity issues, and then she just immediately from that. So really good writing here, and I think it was really smart to kind of give that to Natalie, and then you're kind of hoping you get something great with it when they're in the acting class, and I think we do, and we'll get there a couple scenes from now. But that and then lastly, how great is Gene here? He opens the door and it's like, I want Gene to host my murder mystery dinner. Like I really do, dude. Like I want Dean to like, I want Gene to like literally like ring the fork against the champagne glass and announce that there's been a murder. Like he's just fantastic here.
Yeah, always use a flat part of a spoon when you're doing that. That minimizes your chances of breaking the glass. Just FYI, if you ever really want to do a toast like that, seriously, use the flattest part of the spoon. That's the way to do it. Again, I think you're really right on there. And we saw a little bit of this with Sally in one of the previous episodes in season 1, where she was talking to Barry about how I think she was nervous about taking the acting class. And she got there and she was like, oh, well, they were all, she didn't actually say it that way, but the implication was like all the rest of the students were so far below her talent that she didn't have to worry about them. And I think you kind of get that idea through this episode that there is definitely a high level of narcissism on Sally's part here. She definitely thinks that she's better than all these people. But on the other hand, Barry is definitely a little rusty when he kicks game. I mean, Jamie G, when is the last time you asked to take someone to an aqua park or an arcade or something?
I mean,
in your 30, I'm assuming they're in their 30s at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna say 20 years ago.
Well, I mean, an aqua park. What is an aqua park? Don't you mean like
an aqua park? Is that a water park? Like
I'm assuming, but it's very specific, right? I mean, is it just like where Nestle like steals all the water from California? I don't know.
And it's a weird place to go on like a reset
or an
first
arcade,
date, like
an arcade.
Yeah, that's also a weird place to take.
Do they even exist anymore? Like, can you actually go to an arcade?
I don't know. I mean, Dave and Buster's, man. You go to
you'd say Dave and Buster's then.
Right.
Like they're not afraid to use residuals in real places in LA. I just thought the way, like, just how kind of like the idea that the last time he asked a girl out was in high school or something.
Yes.
So he's just doing what worked last time. And speaking of that, just one more thing, like
we don't know that it worked though.
It probably did. But it probably did. But it's all he knows. Yeah, or that's what Fuchs told him or something. Just one last thing before we move on. Like, this is an annual Shakespeare showcase. Dude, how long have these people been in this class for? Couldn't you like level up at some point? Don't you get the feeling like most of these people have probably been there for at least 3 of these? Like, that's a long time, right, to be taking an acting class. It fits with the ages and the idea that these are kind of, failing actors or whatever. I just think it's hysterical that it feels like, they like a lot of them have done this like 5 or more times. Like, maybe if you're not getting jobs still after 5+ years of this, you should try a different class.
Yeah, that's great point there. You're right. It did feel that way, man. Especially with Nick, like how many times has Nick been let down on
and it feels like Sally's played Lady Macbeth a couple of times too. So
definitely,
like not just the one time, like more than that. So that means she's been in the class like at least like 3 years.
Yeah. Look, they've got longevity. And speaking of longevity, we've got Detective Janice Moss, and she is there to show the class the picture from the lipstick camera that she got in the previous episode. Luckily for Barry, though, you can't make out his face, but you can tell that the guy is at least 6 feet tall. So Janice asked to speak with Eric, Jermaine, and Barry in private. Janice asked Barry about his Marine service and his alibi on the night of Ryan's murder. Barry claims he was out for dinner and drinks with some people from his job, and he gives Janice their names and phone numbers.
Oh boy. I mean, just the setup for what this is setting up is.
I thought that this was kind of, again, an example where the show kind of takes something so dark, the murder of a classmate. We forget that kind of happened like just 2 episodes ago, right? 2 or 3 episodes ago. You take that and you pair it with the class trying to like ask for a better picture was hilarious for me. Like, I just thought that was really funny as they're like, well, can we like enhance this? And then they talk about how they did a scene where they enhanced it and they caught the killer. So I thought, that little bit added some humor here to what otherwise would be a really serious thing. Like, hey, here's like a for lack of a better word, a mugshot of who killed your friend. Right. So, I mean, I thought that worked really well here.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good stuff here, especially because when she starts passing out the pictures, and you look at Barry, and he's with this look of apprehension, like he gets the paper and he has it turned over, like he doesn't want to look because he's worried it's going to be him, and then he looks and he's just like, oh, and then Natalie's like it looks like a thumb with arms or whatever. That was great. Antonio's asking, like, is this like the front of the back of the head? Because like, usually in the front of the head there's a face, and I love the whole enhanced trope because you definitely cannot enhance really. Like there's a little bit you can do about pixels trying to make guesses about the colors that are around them or whatever. But for the most part, when you scale up, you're just like, it's just going to be bigger and less focused. So it doesn't really work that way. But again, they catch them on CSI because that's what you watch CSI for.
Gene here again. I mean, he might steal the show here with his quote at the end of this, as he's trying to kind of get close to Janice here, and he's like, "So be on the lookout for a man with no discernible features. He killed your friend." He's just great here, dude.
And then he shakes Janice's hand and won't let go.
Won't let go.
Actually trying to and then she pulls away and he like puts his hand on it like. Gene
he tries to like get a little waist action.
Yeah, he has just very specific game. Gene has like where Barry has like no game or high school game. Like Gene is like he's got a very specific idea of what Janice is looking for apparently.
Well, and I'll tell you what, he's playing it to the perfect tune because I can't wait to talk about Gene gets lucky here. We'll save that for just a little bit. Mills, what happens next?
Well, speaking of playing games, you set it up well because next we see Fuchs playing a golf video game when he hears a phone ring. It's Bach's phone. So he opens up a box. It's got about a dozen cell phones in it. They're labeled with various names, places, occupations, what have you. Janice is calling to check out Barry's alibi. First, Fuchs does Frank from Texas, and then he does Ramon. While this is happening, Barry is waiting outside in the hallway at the acting class talking to Jermaine. Jermaine thinks Eric definitely killed Ryan. He gets a text from NoHo Hank saying that Goran wants to see him. Gulp. Janice comes out and tells Barry that he's good to go. Just Stephen Root, right? I mean, just doing big things here.
Oh my gosh, dude. This is, first of all, I love this because when you look at it, Barry's name dropping people that he works for, and I was curious to see how they would kind of solve for that. This was about as good as you could possibly do it, where Fuchs is just lounging around and box phone. He gets up and you just literally see he's got a box full of phones. And dude, somebody knows their way around a label maker because man, they were making some labels and sticking them on these phones. Look, Fuchs absolutely kills. Who knew that a blow dryer would sound like you're just on the factory floor? I mean, that worked out great. His Southern accent, his Texas accent, I don't know what's better, that or Charlie from Always Sunny, but Fuchs might have the edge here. It was fantastic. Charlie did have that Texas oil salesman voice down pat, but I will give the edge here to Fuchs, and his Ramon was just, dude.
This is Ramon.
When something actually makes you laugh out loud, it's impressive, man. That was great.
And the way he like gets the other phone because he knows what's coming. Then so give Fuchs credit. At least he does know like his shit. Like this is what he has to do for Barry, and he does do the job here. So I think that's pretty impressive. And if you've ever watched Better Call Saul, or if you haven't, you should. But we covered it on Saul Over Soon. But anyways, there is to be very vague, there's something that goes on with cell phones like this and that's a very enjoyable plot line. So again, you should watch Saul Over Soon, but got a little bit of I don't think they were directly referencing it, but it felt like that a little bit.
Yeah, it did have that feel, and you missed that, right? That was one of the fun things about Saul, and it certainly worked really well here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the con was always good there, but you know where you do not want to con people? At a children's gymnastic practice. And ironically enough, that's where Barry and Fuchs meet up with Goran and Hank. They're at a gym where Goran's daughter is at gymnastic practice. I don't know why they had it there. Maybe they know it won't be bugged. I don't know. It's a little bit creepy, but that's where they meet. Goran wants to call off the Stash House hit due to the heat from the LAPD after Ryan's murder. Goran is especially mad at Hank for bringing the lipstick camera along. Barry is also in favor of calling it off, while Hank and Fuchs both want to go through with it. Fuchs pulls Goran aside for a pep talk, while Hank begs Barry to just do the job. Fuchs' pep talk works, and Goran does not call the job off. As Barry and Fuchs leave, they fight about going forward with the raid. Barry is pissed that the cops are talking to him, and Fuchs is pissed that Ramon had to bail him out. As they get into the car, Barry drops the bomb about Taylor knowing about the job and wanting in. And, by the way, Barry is pretty sure that Taylor is crazy.
This is the only scene we get with the Chechkins, and it doesn't disappoint, but did it leave you wanting a little bit more of them? It does for me.
That depends on what your definition of GAC is, I guess. Which I don't know what GAC is. I tried to look, and from what I can tell, it's either the sound of like a person choking, a cat spitting up a hairball, or it's slang for crystal meth. I do not think it has anything to do with being a quote unquote gearhead.
The one thing I will say that's interesting here is you kind of, they're doing something kind of interesting with Hank here, where he's kind of becoming like not the butt of the joke, but he's definitely getting kind of not big dick, but he's getting bullied around a little bit here, just with with Goran and with Fuchs, and now with Barry getting in on it, just calling him what an idiot he is for bringing this on a hit. So it's kind of an interesting thing, and it makes him kind of the butt of the joke. It works, and I want more of Hank and Goran. These are great characters.
Yeah, and at this point, it's not a spoiler to say, like, originally in the original script, I believe in episode 2 there, like, Hank was supposed to die. Like, that's why it kind of looked like he died. And then they liked having him on the show so much, they kept him around. So that's why I think he probably doesn't have a ton to do here, because they kind of didn't know what they had yet. So they kind of just had to add him to the couple of scenes where it made sense. So they hadn't had time to kind of fully integrate him back into the show yet. But yeah, I mean, everything with the Chechens I think is great. I mean, the choice to set it where they do, I mean, if the kids' gymnastic practice is just like, on one level kind of creepy, on another level you just wonder if the show just didn't have a lot of money and like someone's kids were at gymnastic practice or something. I don't know. In this scene we get 3 different exchanges. You get Goran and Fuchs, you get Barry and Hank, and then you get Fuchs and Barry outside. Which is your favorite?
Man,
I mean, do you wear the pissy pants or not, dude? Or do you wear your big boy who takes down Stash House pants?
I gotta go Goran Fuchs. It just works so well. And one thing I will say, dude, and I think it's intentional with the gymnasium, just because again, I think it adds this kind of silly, kind of bumbling, idiotic innocence to what the Chechkins have. But they have like this large like criminal enterprise, but then you have this, and they've done it kind of all along with with Goran having meetings with his daughter's sleepover going on, and torturing people in the garage when she's having a play day. So they've kind of done it throughout, and I think that it works here again, kind of offsite out of Goran's garage, and back in the gymnasium. I just think that contrast of like something really dark and serious with something kind of goofy and childlike works well, and the show seems to be doing a great job with it throughout.
I mean, if we were going with an alternate podcast title, I'm still for Goran's Garage, but Goran's Gymnasium is a pretty good one as well. So, although that sounds more like it would be his kid show, right? If he's doing a cartoon or something, like Goran's Gymnasium, that sounds like where that one would go. I think that's right on there. I would say I probably would go with the Goran Fuchs exchange just for the whole pissy pants line. I think that's hysterical, and like Fuchs is like totally like just mind fucked Goran at this. Fuchs is just in his head and he's controlling him, and I just think that's pretty cool. But shout out Gak, whatever Hank thinks it is, apparently he's really into it. And after that, we're back at the hotel, and Fuchs is not taking the news that Taylor knows about the job very well. However, he comes out of the shower and he's got a plan. He's got a towel and he's got a plan. Barry should do the job with Taylor and then just take him out after. Just take him out. But taking out a fellow Marine is a bridge too far for Barry, and he and Fuchs argue about it. Eventually, Fuchs gets Barry to admit that Taylor needs to go in order to keep them safe. Fuchs heads back to the shower like this is a settled matter, but Barry doesn't seem so sure. And I do want to say just for a minute, when Fuchs comes out, I was like, man, does he have like really weird patches of hair on him or something like a bear? And no, those are his bruises from getting beat. Like, it took me a minute to figure out, but because they made a choice to do that, but like they definitely committed. Like that.
Yes, I like that they committed to his torture scene. And dude, again, this is really funny because we've gotten kind of Fuchs by himself, kind of sitting around in the hotel, and now we see Barry by himself sitting while Fuchs showers, and you just hear Fuchs just moaning in agony, just yelling, just so mad in the shower, and it's I thought it was one of those things that maybe wasn't like meant to be that funny, but really was to me when I was watching it. I was like, that's just so funny that he's just in the shower, just fucking so mad. But this exchange here between the two of them, dude, this is as good as it gets for me on Barry with Barry, and Fuchs, kind of their interactions. This is way up there.
Yeah, and another nice subtle point is you kind of keep watching the hotel scenes and get them, like the beer bottles just kind of gradually keep accumulating on the various tables in the background. So there's just, again, a lot of attention to detail in this show. You get a couple of good exchanges here. I like how Barry tries to reverse Uno card toxic masculinity on Fuchs. Like, he doesn't even quite know how to use it. He's like, so what? Like, we take out whoever threatens us? That's toxic masculinity. I mean, Barry, good try, dude. I mean, you tried. And we do get, they do the thing where Fuchs says the title of the episode, kind of when he's like, sometimes you just have to shut up, do your fucking job. And that's something that Barry kind of parrots again going forward. Because in the next scene, we're back at the acting class, and Barry is rehearsing a scene with Sally and Natalie. They finish up the scene, and Gene asks if anybody has any thoughts. Sally does. She thinks that it was better last time they did it, when she was the one playing Lady Macbeth. This sets off an argument between Sally and Natalie, which then grows into a group discussion between the whole class about Lady Macbeth, Macbeth himself, and the morality of murder. Barry takes the discussion personally and notes that he has killed people under orders while in the Marines, and that doesn't make him a psycho, despite what they said. Gene attempts to defuse the situation and succeeds somewhat, knowing that things are different in a war. But he also notes, if you kill people outside of a war, you're just a fucking psycho. Am I right?
And you know what was really interesting about this? I like this scene a lot because Barry doesn't actually come out and say that he killed people while in the Marines. He doesn't specify. And it's not until later when I think Gene points out that he was in the military, and the class kind of, oh, shoot, yeah, we forgot, right? But you could kind of tell that this was coming from just him, Barry trying to compartmentalize or justify in some
way. He wasn't talking about the Marines, I don't think.
When he wasn't talking about the Marines. And honestly, when they bring up the Marines, it's almost like Barry was kind of like, oh, yeah, in the Marines. Like, he kind of forgot about it for a second, which I just thought that was really well done. I thought it was a cool element to kind of the acting scene, if you will.
Yeah, and even kind of the cringy, like Gene doing the thank you for your service thing, and I think Hader plays that really well. He's kind of like, you've seen it so many times, and it's just like, again, it feels like someone just saying it because they're obligated to, or to cover, because like it's like saying no offense, but, and then you proceed to say some offensive shit, which is actually kind of what Natalie even did too, because that's what Sally did to her. Again, the narcissism thing there, where Sally's like not even bothered, like she's just right. Oh yeah, of course it was better when I did it. Like, she's not offering Natalie any constructive criticism, which gets the fun line. Shout out Darcy Carden here. She's always great, where it's, it's not instructive or whatever, but it's really not. Sally's just like, this would be better if I was like the one saying the lines. And that's the extent of her criticism and insight.
Is unstructive the opposite of constructive? I didn't know that unstructive was, I had to think about that for a second and go back to my, my grammar lessons.
I think that's just something Eminem created in like 2016. I'd have to check.
Okay, well, I may use it in court one day.
Yeah, I mean, he did it. On the other hand, I think Shakespeare just really whiffed on the whole Macbeth thing.
he might have really whiffed on this.
It's kind of funny, of all the Shakespeare things you could say he whiffed on, Macbeth is not the one you could really say that about.
No, I mean, I think Shakespeare.
That's top tier. That's top tier. Like, big W, big dub S for me.
Yeah, that's
Big Willie Shakes, dude. Big Willie Shakes. That's Macbeth is top tier, dude.
It's got to be, yeah, it's widely considered one of his best. But you know what, dude? I understand Barry's point here, man. I understand Barry's point.
I mean, you do have to give credit, again, a very well written episode, because you definitely can kind of draw the comparison between, ordering a murder and committing a murder, or, ordering a crime and committing a crime, and how that plays out in kind of the morality and responsibility of it all. So I think it is kind of, really a well done thing, especially, it's kind of probably like a trope for an acting, show or class or whatever to do Macbeth. It's a whole, thing about Macbeth. But I think it's interesting, especially like they really get in there. Like, even when Sasha starts talking about like a stain on your soul, and you can tell that kind of really bothers Barry. And, once again, here you kind of get the, sometimes you just have to shut up and do your job line, when Barry kind of parrots it back. So it really, for a scene that kind of on its surface was just a little funny thing, I think there was a lot going on.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And Magnum Mills, I am the master of the tight five here. So after a tight five, we head upstairs for some acting exercises. Everybody seems to be into it, but Barry's head is clearly elsewhere, and he quickly departs. In the car, Barry checks and has another voicemail from Taylor. He arrives back at the hotel where Fuchs and some room service are waiting for him at home.
I mean, this was the exercises they were doing were just incredibly, like, yeah, I'm not really sure here. Like,
Did you try to do them? Because it's sometimes it feels.
I think
good,
you
but
just
it's a
did.
strange thing. It's exactly it. If you're not watching right now on YouTube,
Yeah, it's a little bit of a, I think, an I Dream of Jeannie dance or something like that. But yeah, not really much here. Again, we get another killer voicemail from Taylor, who's just, I mean, he's just really excited to kill people.
You have one new voice message.
Barry, Taylor, let's fucking do this thing, man. Kill people. Fuck yeah. Later.
And I guess the one thing here is, do you think when Barry left, it's because he made up his mind that he was going to do the job, or he left because he couldn't decide whether or not he wanted to do the job after the whole, conversation in the previous scene?
I think Barry left because he was feeling like maybe I don't belong here. All these people think of me as a murderer. Maybe this whole thing is, maybe Fuchs is right. Maybe I just need to do my job. I think he left thinking like, I don't belong here, even though I desperately want it so bad. This is who I am. I'm somebody who kills.
I think that's kind of right on, right? Like, he looks at everyone doing kind of these dumb exercises because he could have left right when they declared the hard five. He stayed because he was still trying to do it. And I think at that point, he's just looking around and he's like, what do I really have in common with these people, kind of? And then he gets a message from Taylor, and on a certain level probably relates more to that. And also the practical part of his brain, he knows he kind of has to do this job, whether he wants to or not. And that Taylor will help him get it done. Larry the Cable Guy style.
He's a get her done kind of guy, man. And but the rest of the acting class, they're having a few drinkies over at Residuals after class. Most of them are feeling guilty about not considering Barry's military service during their discussion. However, not Sally. Sally tries to say that it was all Barry's fault and that she was scared of him for how he acted. She thinks that he owes them all a huge apology. The class doesn't seem to agree, and Natalie actually confronts Sally about leaving her party with Zach in the previous episode. You remember Zach, Pinocchio. This leads class to taking Natalie's side and noting that Sally doesn't seem to actually care about the group. Yeah, and again, they're doing a great job of kind of driving home Sally. And I'm starting to really like this Sally Natalie kind of tension. And I like when Natalie just kind of starts to scratch back just a smidge. It works really well. And Sally, again, she's just so far in her own world that she can't ever be wrong about anything. And I think they, again, they've done a really good job driving that home. Like when they're trying, that's one thing about this show, through 5 episodes, when they want to drive a point home, they will drive it home. Like they will show you for sure.
We're both adults.
I wanted to be an adult with him, Sally, not you, me.
Yeah, she was talking about him for fucking weeks.
Yeah.
Weeks. I mean, just shout out Jermaine, dude. Great line there by Jermaine.
And that is also where the order of the words makes a lot of difference, because you have what she said, which is, yeah, she's been talking about him for fucking weeks. But then you also have, yeah, she's been talking about fucking him for weeks. Like, that is just one of those things that happens with the English language. If you move the word around just the wrong way, it means a totally different thing. Although in this case, I think it probably does mean the same thing. I've just never heard it called, like, I wanted to be an adult with him too.
What I loved about this, though, and this is what's fun about the brain, I immediately heard him say she's been talking about fucking him for weeks. Like my brain, it was too close to not put it.
That is also what I heard. That's yes.
It was what I heard.
It's called a spoonerism, technically, basically, and the brain just hears what it wants to hear. At the end of the day here, like, I think the big takeaway is Sally in this scene. Do you think she was just being a hater by default here? Or did she see Barry as kind of a threat to her or whatever? Because, it really does seem like she's kind of on an island. Like, everyone else kind of feels bad about Barry. And she's not only like, she's not even Switzerland. She's not neutral. Like, she actively is like upset at Barry, where everyone else is kind of like upset for Barry.
I think it's a combo platter in the fact that, one, she's still upset that Barry, kind of like weirded out on her for talking to Zach, right? And kind of came over and was mad, like, hey, that's my girl, and just assumed because she banged them one time they're dating. I mean, that doesn't mean dating in Sally's world. You got to bang her a whole lot more than once to become her man, you know. And I say
She
that
did
in
set him
jest,
up a
but
Facebook page. She did set him up a Facebook
she
page.
did. I mean, those are, you know, in some
that's
look,
that's kind of a step. I mean, that's
a
not
commitment.
nothing.
That's a committed step. I will give you that. So
She knows
I
his
think it was a
Facebook
little
password
bit.
at minimum.
She's still harboring some anger about that whole thing, and then coupled with the fact that I don't believe Sally has the ability to say and believe that she's done anything wrong in any situation ever. So I just think it's kind of a combination of all those things. Like, she doesn't want to admit fault for anything.
I mean, you got a classic narcissism, really. So,
Yeah.
I think that kind of fits with the portrayal here, and that's kind of how they've been setting her up over the past couple of episodes. And again, Barry was wrong to do what he did at the party last episode and approach her. But on the other hand, Sally doesn't really seem to be, making friends or showing any consideration to anybody. So I'm kind of glad that someone called her out on her bullshit.
Yeah, dude. And I wish somebody would have called her out on, like, and he freaking bought you a laptop and you were an asshole to him. You didn't have to be. Like, you could have been like, wow, that's really nice. Like, he tried to do a sweet thing. Like, I'm still not over that. That made me mad on Sally.
Yeah, you'd think on some level, if they're an actor, they're empathetic, and it helps you read people better. And she could just be like, "Oh, this is just a nice guy with poor social skills. Maybe he has enough money. What's a laptop?" I mean, you could go to the LAPD and ask about a laptop, because we're back there, and Detective Loach is asking Janice how it went with the Bigfoot photo they got off the computer there, and she tells him that nobody recognized it, and the 3 possible suspects from the class, because of their height, all have alibis. Loach goes to remove the 3 suspects from the wall on the little whiteboard there, which will at someday be something else. But Janice stops him. She still thinks that there's kind of something off with the acting class. She doesn't want to rule them out. Loach scoffs at the idea that one of the acting class students could be the murderer and asks why Janice won't let it go. Janice seems to think about that, and then she leaves LAPD and heads to Gene's apartment, where she proceeds to jump his bones as soon as he opens the door.
Oh, we're going right into it. Okay. Yeah, okay.
I mean, Jamie, do you think that was it? Do you think, like, the whole thing of her and the suspects is a cop thing, or just a, like, excuse to see Gene thing?
Oh, man. A little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I really do believe that. I think she has some sort of intuition, but I think she's picking down what the Gene daddy is laying down. She's picking it up what he's laying down. I said that wrong, but you get what I'm saying. I'm still enamored with Gene's jacket. When she opens that door, shout out to the jacket that Gene is wearing. He is the master of the coat. And I'm telling you, this coat was incredible. He was even surprised that they were getting right into it.
Oh, we're going right to it, or whatever. Like,
Going right to it. Wow,
to
we're doing wow.
And then she's like, yeah, it definitely brings back the conversation from last episode when she's talking about basically dominating him and everything. Like, shout out to your fetishes, but they seem to have, like, clearly defined roles here.
And look, man, I'm happy for Gene, dude. He had an interest in her. He made his move. He shot his shot. It worked, and he got there, man. Congratulations. Janice is into him.
Yeah, and just shout out Loach, because we probably, he has not gotten a lot of shout out worthy moments this season. He's been a sad sack, but he does get the line where he's talking to Janice and he says,
Moss, you think any of these cupcakes could honestly be a criminal? I mean, look at this. Oh, special skills, yeah. Southern accent, yeah, jazz and tap.
Oh, a retail associate at the Gap. Hardcore,
You go, Loach. You go, Loach. And in the next scene, Barry is going over the plan for the stash house raid with Taylor. Barry's got a ton of details, but Taylor doesn't really seem to be paying much attention. Barry just wants Taylor to know that he's got his back, and he wants to make sure that Taylor has Barry's. Taylor seems okay with this. It's just get on with it. Dude, Taylor's just, is he in the zone? Is he in the zone, or is he in the zone?
Dude, he cannot wait, dude. He doesn't need any directions. He's just like a natural born soldier, dude. Like, he's just so good at this. Like, he cannot wait. I just think that the little bit of commentary back and forth and dialogue back and forth between between Barry and Taylor here is incredible, dude. The fact that it's like Barry's like, no, I want to maintain occupy, like he's going like full blown like military, and Taylor's like trying to give high fives and fist bumps, dude. It's not really a high five or a fist bump situation, as Barry said.
Yeah, I loved everything about like Taylor in this scene, and you get the idea too. Like, it does give you an idea of like how Barry in his personal life is just so unorganized or whatever. He's just playing video games, even in acting. Like, he reads his stuff, but it doesn't seem like he really like knows his lines that well or anything. But here, he's like in his element, right? He's pointing out the alternate, entrance point, exit points, all this kind of stuff. And Taylor is just like, he doesn't even really care, right? Like, the whole point, like, his chance will die. And Taylor's reaction, yeah, like you said, fuck yeah, dude. Like, that's a really interesting setup. So, I was kind of, curious as to, when they were going into the scene, if it would really work out that way, if maybe he was all talk. Sometimes you'll see that with kind of these military things, like the dude's like all gung-ho and then he gets in there and he's just like not really what he says he is. And there's a little irony here, because Barry talks about saving Taylor if he gets hit, shot, or he's immobile or something. And it's actually Taylor who winds up saving Barry when he gets knocked out.
Yeah. Yeah. Because he makes that whole point of saying, if you're hit or you're mobile, like I'll come and save you. Just stay put.
Taylor did that, and I never had that happen, but I did once get some dude got way too excited at laser tag back in the day and definitely butt stroked me in the head. Should have gotten stitches, but I did not. Just don't do that to people.
The more you know. Barry and Taylor enter the stash house and don't initially encounter a ton of resistance. Eventually, they encounter some armed Bolivians, and their gunfire attracts attention. A full-on gun battle ensues. Taylor runs out into a vulnerable position, and Barry debates whether or not to join him, kill him, let him die. As he's distracted, a Bolivian sneaks up on Barry and knocks him out. Barry hallucinates about talking to his and Sally's son after he gets into a fight at school. Barry regains consciousness, and it's all over. Taylor has taken out all of the Bolivians. They checked out the place, and they found a bunch of cash. Taylor turns his back to Barry, giving him a chance to take him out, but Barry couldn't do it.
Yeah, at least as we saw on screen, he couldn't. And what do you think about Barry naming his kid Denzel? Like, was that definitely a Denzel Washington thing? I'm just assuming. Like, I liked Hater in the suit. I thought that was a nice image, because when you're first watching the scene, I was trying to figure out, like, oh, is this his dad talking to him, or is this, then it becomes pretty clear because he's talking about Sally that Barry is the dad in this exchange. But I thought it was interesting that even for a minute I wasn't quite sure which side would actually be Barry because of his issues.
It was business Barry, and I think again, Barry wishes that he, we kind of saw this twice here in this episode. He kind of wishes he had this normal, happy life, with the wife and the kid, and you're kind of seeing it twice, but that's not his reality at all. But every chance he gets an opportunity to escape from his reality, that's kind of what he's envisioning.
And I have to say, when like they're in they first get in there, and the first dude comes in and they shoot him, and then you just see like the can of soup roll up, and then you look at the door and it says like, please leave door shut because of cats or whatever. I'm like, oh fuck, do they like have the wrong place, or is this a trap or something? And I'm glad it wasn't. Kind of like, I was definitely worried for a minute there that they were just going to go in and like brutally murder a bunch of like innocent people who were like, I don't know, like stealing from Costco or something. Maybe not totally innocent, but definitely not like stash house motherfuckers. So I was glad when that did not turn out to be the case. But I mean, Taylor was pretty excited, right? Like, you can tell Barry, like, he wants to kill like bad people. And so when he sees like the joint, like the torture area, he's like, oh, they've been torturing people. And you can tell that like gives him like relief. Like, all right, I can like do the job and not feel bad about it. And Taylor's like, oh, sweet, man. Taylor's all about the fact that they were torturing people.
Yeah, he thought it was like, I mean, just one word response, sweet. Like, and he meant it, And dude, shout out Taylor. He likes the finer things in life. I love when he's like, they literally have a duffel bag filled with bricks of $100 bills. And he's literally like, I'm going to get a friggin' boat. You know how many fucking chicks we're going to get? He's just so.
He wants to do a Pete Diddy thing. He wants to do a Pete Diddy thing. And, shout out when Taylor kind of runs out there. He goes, Leroy Jenkins. That's a very famous, like, early viral video / meme from World of Warcraft, where like this whole party's trying to make this elaborate plan, and one dude just like fucking just runs in and ruins the whole thing because he just wants to like, Leroy Jenkins, and he yelled at him going in. So that's basically what that is. It's a great one, and I do have to say, Jamie G, I'm pretty sure that the Chechens didn't intend for them to keep that cash, right? Like, you would think like they just killed the guy. He's like, oh, just kill the guy. But I mean, that's like a lot of. I feel like that would be in the contract, maybe.
Yeah, any cash or drugs are given back to the Chechens. I mean, I would like.
So there's a split. You keep the cash, we keep the drugs, or that seems to be. It'd be one thing maybe if it's $10K. That unless those are ones, that should be like millions of dollars.
Yeah, it looked like cash. A lot of cash.
If you've ever actually seen $10,000 in $100 bills, it's very disappointing.
Yeah,
that's like $10,000, dude, in $100 bills. That's like $10K. It's not what you think it is.
That was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars at a minimum. And actually, when I look at and they were like 5 straps of 100, so it was like, okay, so that's 5 straps.
That was like $5 million or something. Of my just brief, like just taking a look at it, I'm like, that is millions of dollars. With stash house, I mean, that makes sense, but again, you would think maybe that just speaks to the incompetence of the Chechens, or I don't know, Barry not reading the room right or something.
Well, speaking of Barry, he's reading rooms all right, because he arrives back at the hotel where Fuchs is waiting for him in the lobby. Fuchs is very impressed and extremely happy with Barry until Taylor sits down. Barry introduces them, and Taylor goes on to high fives Fuchs as the episode ends.
I mean, we didn't, at the end of the last scene, like we kind of cut away when Barry's pointing the gun at Taylor's back. Like I was pretty much sure he didn't shoot him, but then when you cut to the scene here and he doesn't come in with him, I was like, oh shit, maybe he killed him. And then just the way Taylor sits down, I thought was great. And right when he's, you get a little shot of Fuchs sitting there before they come in, and dude is just like thunder gunning some Tums. Like, I love that. Like, I wondered, like, was he worried about Barry, or was he just worried he wasn't going to get paid?
He was definitely a nervous Nelly, and I think I counted 2 bottles of Tums. So, I mean, that's a whole lot of Tums.
He was thunder gunning the shit out of him,
He was. Oh, man. Well, that's the end of our recap.
But one more thing before we move on. The only thing that really surprised me here is, like, why would Fuchs not look at Taylor and go, like, this is like dumber Barry? Like, couldn't he just use Taylor the way he's using Barry, but even easier maybe? Because Taylor seems to be into this. Like, I would have thought, like, Barry should have been worried that, like, Taylor would take his spot. Or, I mean, wouldn't Taylor be a perfect replacement? I mean, he could just be like, yo, Fuchs, here's Taylor. He can do your hits now. I'm set. I'm going to do the acting thing.
Well, I think Barry could have potentially pitched it, but I think Fuchs is too smart for that. Taylor clearly cannot be trusted. Barry's not going to talk. Barry's going to be low key. Barry's not going to, Taylor, I can see him just blabbing his mind. I mean, look at the voicemails he's leaving. He's clearly not somebody you want to kind of trust your freedom on. So, in my opinion, but that is the end of our recap. Before we hand out our awards, let's see what other people thought about this episode. On IMDb, Do Your Job has a rating of 8.3. That's the 17th ranked episode out of 24. And it's also the highest rated of the first 5 episodes. Interesting. Mills, does this feel like a real step up for you from our first 4 episodes of Barry, as the rating suggests that it is?
I think it does. Again, not, wild about the lack of Goran and NoHo Hank. We just get the one scene, but I think we get major character movement on all fronts here. Again, kind of like I talked about in my initial thoughts. You get, Janice and Jean getting together. You get Sally kind of getting her comeuppance. You get Barry actually having to commit to really like doing this big raid and everything. So I think it really worked for me. And I do think this was kind of the culmination of what you see with a lot of shows. You're halfway through the first season now. They kind of have figured out who they are a little bit. And now they can hopefully kind of, hit the proverbial pedal to the metal for the home stretch. What about you, man? You think this is a step up from the first 4?
I do. And I was probably a little bit higher on the first 4 than maybe the Gen Pop here and the IMDb's of the world, but I thought this one was a clear kind of, all right, now we're starting to hit a groove. And to be honest with you, as some of these storylines are starting to, evolve here, I really like this. I thought that this was like clearly like okay, we've got something here. So I'm very excited to see this kind of go on.
Yeah, like Stella's getting her groove back, kind of like, even though it's just, early, she's probably in theory getting her groove for the first time, but it's all good because we're enjoying it and we enjoy the show no matter what they call the episodes. But we've seen even Bill Hader himself admit that they really don't spend a lot of time trying to come up with the episode titles. So what do you think, Jamie G? Can you come up with a better episode title than Do Your Job?
I mean, Shakespeare Whiffed is a pretty good one. I would be intrigued by Shakespeare Whiffed.
No, I like Shakespeare Whiffed. I love Gak. I think obviously that would a good one, and it's going to be a party. Like that sounds like it could be a Barry title. Like just I think you get that one from our boy fucking Taylor did. So love that one, and I do thrive in parameters. So
Thrive in Parameters would be an outstanding one. Love that.
That is really weird. I mean, I get what it means, but I've never even heard that in like corporate speak. Like I've never even heard that in like, some of the rah training or whatever. I've never actually heard like you should thrive in parameters. That's a good one.
It is a good one. It should be used more. What about Magnum Mills? What about You Wear Pissy Pants? And that might be an interesting one here too.
Yep. Yeah, yes, just yes, a winner. I mean, if you want to make the super long one, like it would be like, you don't wear pissy pants, you wear big boy raid stash house pants. That would be funny. Like every once in a while, you see the show like willing a show like willing to make like a super long title like that just for fun, like a run on sentence. For the most part, I'm there for all of that, man. Like I would pay money, like in fact, like $20 a month to watch that.
Yep. Well, we're there for the GAC, we're there for the pissy pants, we're there for it all. And we're definitely there to put our money where our mouth is when it comes to how we feel about this episode titled Do Your Job by handing out our awards. We'll start by each choosing our favorite quote or dialogue exchange from the episode. Magnum Mills, I have got to go back to that scene. We keep talking about it. I'm sorry, man, if you wanted to take this one, but I gotta go with the pissy pants, dude. This is just too clutch. The gymnasium scene, Fuke scoring, two of my favorite characters here, and boy, did it deliver.
You don't wear pissy pants. You wear big boy who takes down stash house pants.
Oh, dear God, thank you, because I was so sure you're going to steal my thunder, dude. Just how is it not Taylor's voicemails? Just give me Taylor's 3 voicemails. All 3 just cracked me up. Literally laughed out loud. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. That brings us to our favorite moment or scene from Chapter 5, Do Your Job. It's my turn to go first here. And I was a little tempted to go with the kind of the gymnasium scene, but I think there's, a little bit too much there to call kind of one thing. They cut back and forth or whatever. So I am just going to go with the Barry and Taylor planning scene at the car where Taylor's like hardly paying attention and Barry's really trying to, pitch all the stuff to him or whatever. And he's like, yeah, all right, yeah, rock and roll, dude. I just love Taylor. I love the whole feel of that. Again, way to like kind of make something you had to do from probably a plot standpoint to like, but make it entertaining. Like it was something that you had to do, but it made it fun. Jamie G, favorite moment or scene?
I'm gonna actually go with one of the more kind of serious scenes here, but I think it did a couple of things that were really big for what the show is showing this early on what it can do. And that's the scene, the acting scene where Barry's on stage and basically calls out Macbeth for Shakespeare kind of whiffed on this one, bud, and basically tries to defend the fact that he kills people, but it doesn't make him psycho, it doesn't make him a bad person. And I thought this was such a good moment in this episode. It wasn't the funniest, it wasn't but it had purpose, and it showed the depth really of where this show can go, which for the first time I was like, wow, that they can really go places with this, man. This thing has depth. And so I thought that was really impressive. That brings us to our Greek Freak of Assassins, which is our MVP of the episode. Guess it's my turn to go first here. I'm going to steal your thunder on this one because I have to go Taylor. I know that's been your guy throughout. He wins this, dude, 100%. How could he not?
Double down. Yes, Taylor, MVP, I think hands down, slam dunk. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I say it one more time, we're going to get a free case of Lemon Pledge. And while we don't have a case of Lemon Pledge yet, we're trying to be Roddy T's, Rotten Tomatoes. We're not quite there yet, but still, we're going to do our best to give a grade 2 to your job.
Because I'm the Fonz. Oh, hey.
In honor of Henry Winkler, Gene Cousineau himself, we grade each episode of Barry on a scale of 1 to 10 Fonzies. Hey, I'm up first here. This is going to be the highest rated episode of season 1 for me so far. I am going with 8.5 Fonzies. Solid B, maybe even a little bit on the B plus. I think, definitely a noticeable jump up. Well, again, I think every episode of Barry is a good episode of Barry. I really enjoyed this one, very much, despite the lack of the Chechens. Jamie G, give me some Fonzies.
Hey, man. Hey, I'm right there with you, brother. I am going to match that and go 8.5 as well. I think that's the perfect score for this. You're right. It is creeping on the come up to that B plus. But this is just, it's a great episode, and it kind of separated itself, and you can kind of see the show maturing before our eyes. And I love that, man, especially this early in. 8.5. Hey.
Just because you couldn't give it 8.5 Bone Thugs and Harmony for creeping on the come up. And you've crept up far enough to get to the spoiler section. So if you do not want to be spoiled by anything from future episodes or any other news about Barry, go ahead, check out now. Thanks for checking us out. Please make sure you do the like and subscribe thing. Check back next week for our episode covering Chapter 6. Listen with your ears, react with your face. Honestly, I don't know how else you would do it, but that's how you do it. For everybody else, here's our spoiler discussion. In Jamie G, right off the top, I didn't remember Chris hanging out with or Barry hanging out with Chris and his family at the boardwalk. I knew kind of there was the boardwalk scene, but I didn't remember that. So I think it adds more value in season 3, where Barry has the interaction with Chris's widow and son and everything like that. So good job by the show, I guess.
Yeah, and when he took that picture of the family, I had a flashback, and I remembered it. I'm like, oh yeah.
Now I think we see that in their house, right? I think that's in their house in season 3 when he goes to visit.
That was pretty cool. Another one for me, Magnum Mills, is we're kind of seeing the show do this. They're kind of going to the well, and I think they can continue to do it with kind of not a flashback, but almost like a daydream or an altered state for Barry. We kind of see it more than I thought we did, on our original. Now that we're rewatching this, I'm like, yeah, shit, man, we're kind of seeing a few of these, and it works. I'm not mad that they do it at all, but I think it's something that they realized, hey, this is a way to tell this story and to go a little bit deeper on certain things. We're going to continue to use it.
Yeah, and I think it's a good way to give, insight into Barry, because, even through season 3, we're kind of doing that, when you go onto the beach there at the end of season 3, but you don't really get Barry's not the kind of guy who just really ever says what he thinks for the most part. You got a little bit of in this episode when he was on stage, and he kind of honestly talks about being ordered to kill people and that kind of thing. That feels about almost as honest as he's ever been. So I think that's again, everything tracks really. I think it all fits. I mean, again, maybe Gene doesn't always drive an Escalade or whatever, and he becomes less competent, and maybe Sally becomes a little bit meaner. But right in this episode, maybe this is the first and best instance of Sally just shitting all over Natalie, but then Natalie will eventually be slavishly loyal to Sally. So I don't know, man. I think this episode definitely established kind of the Sally we know, right? Extremely talented, but also vindictive, petty, jealous, not the best.
Yes. And it makes this episode made me not feel as bad for Sally as I did in season 3 when her whole shit came crumbling down, and Natalie kind of the pendulum swung to Natalie, right? This reminded me of oh yeah, we probably shouldn't feel that bad for Sally.
Yeah, I think, again, I think it's part of Sarah Goldberg's such a great actress, and the way they play it out, that they kind of it's like a roller coaster, right? They get you invested and oh yeah, she's great. It's oh yeah, she's not so great. Oh yeah, she's pretty great. Oh yeah, she's not so great. And again, we've seen this throughout. Whenever Barry's got to actually do the killing thing, he's very good at it. He's very meticulous, very thought out. Whereas in his personal life, he has basically, no plan, no direction, no motivation. And I guess one more thing here is, we get kind of the big shootout, right? But think about it. We don't really see much. Like they shoot the one guy with the groceries, then the couple of guys, and then Barry basically gets knocked out. Like, do you think that was because the show, couldn't afford it? Like we saw where they had the big motorcycle chase in ADN or whatever in
Right.
season 3 there. Like they have more budget for it. Do you think they would have shown that now if this kind of scene had happened in season 3, season 4, what have you? Do you think they would have shown more of it to make Barry seem more competent?
They could have. I mean, but I'll tell you what, though. Shout out to Bill Hader, though, because he seems very competent when he has a gun in his hand. Like, I mean, and they even Janice Moss kind of points that out and says something that may even be verbatim, right? Knows his way around the gun. So I don't think they've done a bad job of like showing even like how quick, just rapid fire, quick, like
they set up the beginning of the episode with the BB gun. Like Chris says,
right.
He's rusty and can't hit it, and Barry just takes it and like bam.
Immediately, boom, right. So I think they could have, but I think doing it this way, A, saved a ton of money. B, it allowed them to go a tad bit deeper with the show with his altered state kind of daydream or trip out or whatever it was, hallucination. So I think it worked. I'm glad they made that decision. And yes, it probably was a little bit of a budgetary helping them nudge them towards that decision.
I would almost guess that like this was kind of like, necessity is the driver of a lot of creation where they had to find a way to do it, but it also kind of made Taylor seem like superhuman, right? Because Barry's supposed to be hyper competent, but this makes you scared that like, oh shit, Taylor can take Barry out, like he's at least as good as he is or whatever. So I think again, whether this was them making lemonade out of lemons or whatnot, it worked for me, but I can see them again, if you had a little bit more budget now and that kind of thing, like trying to show Barry, like taking some guys out, doing a couple of rolls behind the pallets, because you can see it was all set up for that. It was like a video game scene with the warehouse, like the things you can hide behind and kind of like jump out and creep and shoot and everything on Call of Duty or what have you.
Yeah, that would have been cool to see, man. I would have liked it. But we do get that killer motorcycle chase, which was an awesome one.
You know what? I will say, like, again, we're in full spoilers, so Barry's in jail right now. I'm guessing we get one of those scenes before the series ends. Like one kind of like massive, crazy ass shootout.
I hope so, man. I won't take you up on that because I think you might be right. And we're always right when it's a wrap. That is a wrap on chapter 5. Do your job. It feels like the show is really hitting its stride here, as we said. So we're definitely pumped and excited for chapter 6. Listen with your ears, react with your face, which is up next. Anything to add here, Mills?
Well, yeah, I think we're going to have fun with trying to come up with an alternate title for episode 6 because it's a bit of a mouthful there.
That's what she said. And Mills, that's what she said. Thanks again for checking out the Barry Podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed our show and we added something to your Barry experience. Whether you're doing a rewatch thing or checking out Barry for the first time, we're here for you, man. Please remember to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. Mills, anything that I forgot to mention, good sir?
I mean, that we're, totally awesome, really cool, chill guys. Basically, again, remember, just wherever you get your pods, just search for Barry Podcast on the social media at Barry Podcast. And if you're only listening, you're not watching, you can find our YouTube channel. The easiest way is to go to joeblowfootballshow.com or just search for Barry Podcast. And thank you one more time for checking us out. On behalf of myself, Magnum Mills, and Jamie G, the co-presidents of the Mitch Fan Club. We'll see you on the next episode of the Barry Podcast.
And always remember to turn off Wi-Fi before you press the detonate button.
That's a big one.
Big one. You don't want to whiff on that one. You don't want to be like Shakespeare and whiff on that one.
The one time I tried to set up it easy, that's what she said.